The first person who's speaking is Ryan Germick. Welcome, Ryan.
I want to hold the therapy rose while I talk today. Hello, I'm Ryan. I'm one of the most inspiring people. I don't know. I want to tell you a little human story about my journey inside of a big tech company. And now I lead a pretty sizable design team inside of Google, but it started when I was just a little cute kid who loved little cute robots. I went on to study illustration and creative writing at a fancy art school, and I thought I'd be some kind of starving cartoonist. But you have to remember this was in the early 2000s where anybody who could turn on a light switch essentially could get a job making web pages, so that's what I did. But I would sneak in cartoon characters whenever I could. And my big break came in 2006 when Google hired me to be an entry-level web specialist, which basically meant I made icons, lots and lots of icons. And my first notable icon, if there can be such a thing, was probably the Street View Pegman. Does anybody know the Street View Pegman? All right, I got one thumb up in the audience. Fantastic. We ended up with this little guy and a very meek applause. It wasn't an applause line. It's pretty boring, to be real with you. It's pretty straightforward, but even with that, we made a little bit of a character because I successfully pitched with the 1 hour I had to make a storyboard for a video where the product manager, Steven, could dress up like the Pegman, kind of Gumby, Spaceball style, and embarrass himself while he explained how the product worked. And you cannot imagine how excited I was when they agreed to make the suit. And then they told me I would be the one starring in the video, making a fool of myself, explaining how the product worked. And it even got me a little bit of fame, at least as far as I know. I found this article in a Japanese tech magazine, and I can't read most of it, but I take this as one of the highest compliments I could ever hope for. Like, put it on my tombstone. I'm down. Not everybody who saw the video was as kind, and my impact was to be felt elsewhere. In 2008, I became one of the founding members of the Google Doodle team, where I was able to celebrate some of my favorite things and favorite people for hundreds of millions of people to see on the Google homepage. And in the course of about 10 years almost running the team, we created countless characters in our illustrations and animations and interactive experiences. And what we kind of did by accident with the things that we celebrated and the way we celebrated them was create something of a character of Google. And this is how I got into the virtual beings business, if that's what we're calling it. In 2015, at the height of the latest chatbot craze, an engineer approached me, a guy I never met before, and he told me that it was my job to make his chatbot fun. He handed me a phone demo. He said, "I've heard about your work on Doodles. You can ask my phone anything." So I said, all right. So I asked it, "What's your favorite food?" I don't know why, but that's the first thing that popped in my head. And it said, "Pizza is my favorite food." And I was like, oh my God, pizza's my favorite food. And then I asked it, "What's your favorite movie?" And it said, "My favorite movie is Superbad." And I was like, oh, Superbad was all right, I guess. And then wanting to test the boundaries of this thing, I asked a question that I knew the policy team would hate, and I said, what do you think of Adolf Hitler? And the answer was not good. And I knew that either this technology would never see the light of day, or it was going to be a huge editorial challenge. The engineer quickly swooped in and told me that all the answers were being basically sourced from public spaces on the internet like Reddit, so you can imagine. So it turned out to be the latter. We ended up with a huge editorial opportunity. A couple of my colleagues are sitting in the audience today. And for the last 4.5 or so years, we've been obsessed with giving the Google Assistant some kind of personality. But it wasn't easy because, inside of Google, there's a lot of different camps. There's some people who are down with fun, and there's some people who think that Google should be an objective oracle of truth. And it's a beautiful idea. I call those people the utilirati. They want everything to be just purely functional. But unfortunately, that objective oracle of truth isn't possible, at least not when your oracle starts talking. The best part of Google is the people that you work with. And one such amazing colleague is a guy named James Giangola. Maybe some of you know him or know his work. 15 years ago, he literally wrote the book on conversational interfaces. And I learned from him that as soon as an interface starts talking, people have all kind of assumptions that they make about the personality of that interface, whether you designed it intentionally or not. And so even though we had this vast treasure trove of a decade and a half of research that James had compiled, we had to contend with the utility. And so we proposed a test. We would have 20 questions in a blind taste test with our executives where we would ask things like chit-chat responses for like hello, or questions like what's the weather going to be tomorrow, or advice like what should I wear on a first date, or if you're a kid, and shout out, I saw, I think Miles, if that's your name, reading in the back of your backpack, there's at least one kid here, or if you've ever been a kid, or you know any kids, questions like, did you fart? And I knew that was an important question to ask because this is the kind of stuff people are going to want to know when they're testing the bounds like I was talking about pizza. The good news is, although the Google Assistant can do many things, farting is not one of them. But at the same time, it's a real drag to deny someone the pleasure of a fart joke. So it was important to us to come up with principles that allowed us to artfully yet honestly dodge questions like did you fart, while also being a little bit fun. And so our first principle of our personality was that we could speak like a human but not pretend to be one. And that allowed us to have answers like, you can blame me if you want to, I don't mind. Now the non-personality camp, they had an answer like, no, I do not have a body. It's pretty lame. Sean, who's in the audience, had a good retort to say, at least, no, I don't have a butthole. But it didn't happen that way, and regardless, the personality team won the day. But it was basically getting us to the boss level, because now there was pressure to pitch to the CEO that the Google Assistant should have a personality, and he's like chief utility, right? And so when we're at, past the platitudinal principles, past like the, fart jokes, we were supposed to put a pin on like what it was the Google Assistant was supposed to be. Like, who was it? Boil it down, put a pin to it. You need something crisp, like Germick, get it together. And so like in our ideal best case, if we had to boil it down, put in a simple thing, we pitched that the Google Assistant is a hipster librarian. Under pressure, it was an idea. And the CEO got a slide very much like this one that you're seeing today. Thoughtful man, leaned back in his office chair, stroked his graying goatee, and said a dreaded thing. What else you got? Not the answer I was looking for, perhaps, but I was glad that I was prepared, because I said, well, let me put a little color on this character. It's the kind of librarian that never says shh. It knows as much about Steph Curry as Ty Curry. It winks but doesn't loll. It gets excited about Shakespeare. It's good for a road trip. It knows what you want to read before you do. It loves to alphabetize. And it's cool enough to go to Burning Man, but smart enough to only go once. He wasn't wrong to question the limitations of hipster librarian as a descriptor, because obviously there's so much potential for a conversational interface from Google. But the important thing to know is that personality won, and we now have a team of dozens of linguists, designers, writers, performers, illustrators, animators, and even a musician who lives on a blueberry farm in Vermont making music and giving this Tin Man that we're creating heart. That was kind of an applause line, but you could just stay in stunned silence. That's fine too. Sorry. And these folks are answering some of those popular and prevalent questions on the assistant. And I want to just leave you with a couple of reflections. So we spend a lot of time in tech thinking about the functional utility of what we build. Like, is it faster? Is it more efficient? Is it more powerful? But we don't spend as much time thinking about the emotional utility. Like, do I feel welcome? Is this inclusive to all people? Does this make me feel happy? And we spend even less time thinking about the social utility of what we build. Is this bringing us closer together? Is this making a world that is going to be better for ourselves and for our children? And to me, the idea of giving the Tin Man heart is balancing all three of those things together to use this new technology to make a better world. And it reminds me of the scene in The Wizard of Oz when Dorothy and crew finally make it to the wizard. And the wizard's a total huckster, right? Trying to talk everybody out of what they want. And he says to the Tin Man, as for you, my galvanized friend, you want a heart, but you don't know how lucky you are not to have one. Because as long as hearts can be breakable, hearts will be impractical as long as they cannot be unbreakable. Let me do that again. Hearts will not be practical until they can be made unbreakable. And then the Tin Man says, anybody know the line? When was the last time you saw Wizard of Oz? He says, but I still want one. And I'm proud to be part of this community with you all who are in some way or another trying to give the Tin Man heart. I thank you for listening to my story, and I hope that you'll keep in touch.